my name is Jennifer Winkleman, and I'm doing this Math 117 review for your Test 4 test that is coming up. It is all about Z-scores and T-scores and a little bit of like some P-hat and Q. We'll see that a little later. But starting off, it starts out with asking a bunch of questions about using the chart in the back of your book that has the Z-scores. If you know what I'm talking about, the normal distribution, the standard normal curve that's in the back, your teacher printed out 2 copies of the table for you with the negatives and the positives. So I don't have the chart to show you, but this is what we do. Whenever it says, number 1 says the area between z equals 0 and z equals 121. So the first thing you want to do is look up 0 in the table, and you'll see that it corresponds to 0.5. Then you want to look up 121 in the table and see that it corresponds to 0.8869. And so you really want to go ahead and do that so that you can see right now if you understand what I'm talking about and where I'm getting these numbers from this table in the back of your book or on a copies of paper. Because if you don't, then the rest of this review is not going to make any sense, okay? To figure out between just means, hey, subtract, okay? And you got to be positive, so you always got to do the bigger minus the smaller, okay? And whenever you do this, this ends up giving you C. So at this point, you can go ahead and do this in the calculator. You have to subtract the areas. You can't do 121 minus 0, okay? The next one is the exact same way. So I look up this Z equals negative 1.56 in the calculator. I'm sorry, in the calculator, in the back of the book, and I get 0.0594. And then I look up this 1.45 in the book, and I get 0.9265. From there, I go ahead and subtract them again. It's the bigger one minus the smaller one, okay? And this ends up giving me letter D. Please make sure you can do that before we move on, because the next questions are the exact same way. Hey, look at this. So here it says, now notice number 3 says to the right. Anytime they say to the right, or more, or something like anything that's having to do, and we'll see some other examples with wording, but to the right you have to do 1 minus whatever this is. So I look this up in the table, okay, and I get 0.0885. So to do this problem correctly, I do 1 minus 0.0885. That's what to the right actually means. If you look at this little chart, if here's my curve, this is the z-score of negative, because the negatives are to the left, 1.35. To the right means all that. So it's going to be a pretty big number, and in this case, it's D, okay? Now the next one says to the left. Well, the left is the default. So whenever you look this number up in the book, that is exactly what you're going to get, okay? So if I look this up, number 4, in the back of the book, I end up with the number 0.0885, okay? So that's exactly what it was in number 3, but to figure out to the right, I did 1 minus. In this case, here's my Z equals negative 1.35. There it is. It's going to be a little thing. It's okay. So just know that the left is the default, okay? Right, you got to do 1 minus. Now number 5 is a little tricky, the way they word it. It says the area under the standard normal curve to the left of this negative one that we just looked up. So this guy here, this is Z equals negative 1.35, and to the right of the positive 1.35. So they really just want these 2 areas. So because they use the word and means to add. So I look up these 2, but I can look up this one. You know what I get? What's what I just had in the other problem, 0.885. But I know what you're thinking, well, how do I know what this one is? Well, you can go through and do the work of looking up this one and then doing 1 minus, if you remember we did that earlier, but hey, guess what? It's the exact same thing as that. So there's 2 of them. Notice these are going to be even, what am I going to say, even measurements, so like even, I don't want to say length, but these are the same, okay? So it's 0.885 on both, 0.0885 on both sides, and I add them together, and that gives me 0.1770, which is D. So whenever they say to the left of the negative and to the right of the positive, and be careful. See, looking at that, you might think that it's not that one, you might do something wrong. Even I misread it the first time, and I was starting to do it wrong, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. But you got it, they're talking about the little ones, okay? It's the little ones. Now this next one here is asking us, they're using a different format now. Hey, guess what this is saying? Between, this is all this means, okay? Don't let the fancy symbols fool you. So what you're going to do is you're going to look up this one, negative 0.86, and you're going to look up this one. You're going to look up 0.32. Well, negative 0.86 gives me 0.1949. Positive 0.32 gives me 6255. And guess what I'm going to do? Subtract them. So, remember, it's always the biggest minus the smallest. Go ahead and subtract them, and you should be left with B. Now, let's look at these. So it says using the standard normal distribution. This means left, and we remember the left is the default, so it's whatever that number is in your book. So you're looking at your chart and you're going, whoa, wait a minute. Negative 3.56, this thing stops at negative 3.49. If you notice at your chart at the very bottom, there's like a little asterisk, and it has a note. And it says for numbers less than negative 3.49, and on the other side, it has one for the positive, where it would say for numbers greater than positive 3.49, they tell you what to use at the bottom. So please, please be careful. Make sure you read that. And if you look at this, what this ends up being is this. It has a note in the book that says to use this thing. It should be at the bottom of your chart, okay? So don't think, I can't find it. What am I supposed to do? Now here, that means to the right. Notice how it's going, okay? To the right. Remember, the right is when you do 1 minus. So I look up 0.55 in the book, and I get 0.7088. So I do 1 minus that. Pop that in my calculator. I'm left with that. All right. Now this next one is having us work backwards. Notice how this is worded. If 65.17% of the area under the standard normal curve lies to the left of it, find the corresponding z-values. What they're telling you is, here's your picture. They're telling you that, oh, this is 0.6517. What's the z? So what you need to do is go in your chart, and I wish I had the chart to show you, but you go in your chart, and you have all these numbers here. You know, you have your little z values over here that correspond to it, and you're looking for this number, 0.6517. Whenever you find it, you line up this number and this number that go with it, and that is going to be your z value, which in this case is 0.39. Please stop and double check that you can get that in the chart. Look for this area there. You find the z-scores on the side that line up and go with it, and it's 0.39. Please double check that you can do that, okay? Now, let's look at these last couple, and I'll stop this one. This is the exact same thing. It says, if 88.88% of the area under the standard normal curve lies to the right of it, find the corresponding z-value. We're going to do the same stuff, but the first thing first, it says to the right. So I need to do 1 minus this, because that's going to give me the correct z-value. So here, I get this area. I need to look up in my z-chart, like we just showed, for 1, 1, 1, 2, and it's a small number. If it's less than half, it's going to be on the negative side, or what z-values line up with that, and you should find that it is negative 1.22. Please be able to do that. Please double check that you can do that. Okay, this next one. Now this next one says that 50% of the area lies in the middle. Find the 2 z-values. Hey, guess what? Here's your chart. Okay, here is z equals 0, the mean, right? They're saying that this whole thing in green is 0.50. Well, I'm saying to you, what is this and what is this? It's split directly down the middle. It's 0.25 and this is 0.25. Oh, what z goes with this? I need to find this z. What is it? So what you need to do is take whatever this is. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the 50% or 40%, 80%, whatever they tell you, divide it by 2. It's going to give me 0.25. I'm going to take this number and I'm going to add it to 0.5 every single time. This gives me 0.75. I need to find the z-value. I'm still not done, okay? I find the closest z in my chart. Here's my chart. You know, I'm looking for the closest z to to 0.75. Yeah, there could be some stuff after it, but you want to go smaller. If your next one is like 0.759, you better pick this one that comes before it. And then you line up what goes with it here, okay? So always pick the smaller one. Please, please, please look at this in the back of your book or at the chart and figure this out that you can get this. The closest one that corresponds to 0.75, I'm going to erase the 9 because that's not necessary, is 0.67. That is the z-score that goes the closest to 0.75 without going over. You can't go over. And so I need two z-values. Guess what the other one is? The negative one. So the negative and the positive one, that's what they are, okay? It's always going to be that way. If you find the positive, the negative is your other one, okay? Again, in this kind of problem, whatever they're telling you to do, 50%, 80%, 60%, divide it by 2, get that number, add it to 0.5, get the closest z to that total, that's your z, every single time. I'm going to stop this here before I move on to the next section of questions.